Afternoon all. I know it's been a while since you've heard my dulcet tones. I've just been very busy with work and other things. I've tried to do a couple of updates that hopefully you've seen, but I wanted to do a proper video on something that I've mentioned plenty of times during all my other videos, and that's about the communication piece. I realised that the conversation that you probably have to have with your kids at different ages isn't an easy one. So I thought what I would do is pull together quite a few of the resources and stuff that I've seen over the years, just experience that I've gained from dealing with children, dealing with parents of children, and how that conversation might be held a bit easier. You don't need to be the most technical person in the world to talk to your kid about these things. There's just certain topics and parts of the topics that you need to be able to converse with your child over to just gain their trust and let them know that you're there to protect them, which is obviously the main reason for all of this stuff that I do, is to help you to do that. So I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller, you'll be happy to hear, and just bring up, because I've obviously done a presentation for it, because there's nothing wrong with a good bit of PowerPoint to get a message across. In just before I start, I'll say that the topics are broken down once we get further on into age groups, and what I'll do is in the description below in YouTube, I'll break it down so that you can actually go to the age group of concern for yourself. If you do go to one or two, or even listen to them all, you might see there's a bit of repeated stuff across those, and that's purely because there's certain things that are important for all age groups for you to be able to discuss with them. Also, I'll probably put some links to good resources that I've seen over the years that are very helpful around this sort of thing. So we will move on to the next screen. And the agenda, or what we're going to cover, I've just done the intro basically, so I won't need to go through that again. We'll cover some tips that you can use for your conversation, how to tackle difficult conversations, and then, as I said, I'll break that down into advice by age groups, and then we'll do a quick summary at the end. So this is basically something that I've seen a lot when I speak to people, is that online life and offline life, there is no such thing to most kids these days. I think it's just life. The children are growing up with technology and the internet, and for them there just isn't a difference. Online life and offline life is just the same thing. Technology, it moves so fast these days. Even someone like me who works in the industry finds it difficult to keep up with some of the trends as they rocket past. But that's why it can be difficult for parents to know where to start that conversation, and when to start talking to your child about these things, who they might be speaking to, or discussing the potential risks and issues that are associated with online life. Starting the conversation, I would say that the more regularly you talk to your child about these things, that's probably your greatest tool. And it's something that if you make it regular and make it part of your daily conversation, it just becomes something that's natural. So just as you would maybe ask how their day was at school, that's the sort of thing that keeps them feeling relaxed about the conversation. They don't feel like it's something to be worried about or scared of. They just think, straight away, it's because you're genuinely interested in them and what they're doing. It would cover off the fact that if they feel that way, then if something doesn't feel right to them, they feel a lot more comfortable coming to you and saying, look, this is what's happening, and I want your advice on it, rather than trying to hide it and go off and something might happen because they've hidden it and gone off their own advice, or the advice of one of their friends or something like that. So I think that's probably the best place to start with anything like this is to just make it natural, make it normal, and let them know that they can come and speak to you about it at any time. I would say that it can be very easy to become overwhelmed with different technologies, as I've probably gone over in other videos on my channel, is that there are so many differences between each of those different apps and the security behind it and how to make the privacy correct for it. But if you've already put in place the foundations for your child to know they can come and speak to you, that really doesn't matter, because no matter what the different technologies are or the languages that are being used on there, and it doesn't infringe on the fact that they'll come and speak to you. So try not to worry too much about all of the different technological aspects. There's always people you can go and speak to about those things. Just put those foundations in place that they can come and speak to. Age appropriate conversations. A big factor probably to consider when you're talking to children is their age, and their sort of their cognitive abilities. It also, because it'll also impact on the sort of language that you use and what different aspects you would talk to them about. So as children get older, their needs and behaviors will change, particularly as children start to move through the teenage years, because they're more prone to taking risks, they're more prone to mood swings, or even whether they'll talk to you because it's something that they might be embarrassed or ashamed about. So I suppose an example here would be that if you were to suspect that there was grooming happening or they were being exploited, you may not wish to talk to a younger child directly about that, but instead you can report them directly to the likes of CEOP, who are a great organisation doing great things out there to try and make the internet a safer place for kids of all ages. With an older teenager, though, you might be more comfortable talking about these issues. There are some really good guides and tips and stuff out there that I'll put some links to in the comments description. So tips for your conversation. I'd say that these are probably very, very generalized tips, obviously. You know your own child better than anyone. So the first one that I would say is to reassure them. Make them realize that you're interested in them and their life. You recognize that they will be using the internet for many different things. So you can ask about, what are their favorite things to do online. If their favorite activity, say, is YouTube, what do they enjoy watching? Is it gaming or hobby related? What games do they like to play and why? And is that because they enjoy the game, or is that where their friends are hanging out with them? What apps do they use is probably a good conversation piece with them. Why do they use those? Is it because their friends have used them? Maybe if you haven't heard of that app, you could ask them to show you how it works. Just make it that you are interested, you do want to be involved, and you want to learn what they're doing, and why you want that to be the case. Try not to treat it like an interview. I mean, it has to be a conversation with them. You've got to be curious and show genuine interest. If you start to make it feel like an interview or a police interview, then the immediate reaction would be to no comment, as a lot of people do in police interviews. There's nothing wrong with asking who they're talking to. Ask if it's people that they don't know offline, I've mentioned in previous videos, then don't be angry with them, but explain to them that and ask them questions about how they met and what sort of things they talk about. Remind them that not everyone online is who they say they are, and obviously never to arrange to meet someone offline if they've never actually knew them before. It's very easy for, as I've said before, Johnny age 7 to believe that Samantha aged 8, 9 on the internet is a very nice person, and they want to go and meet them. But if they've not met them in school or somewhere like that, then who knows who it is on the other end of the monitor. And then my go-to piece every time, remind them about strangers. Stranger danger hasn't changed over the years. It's still that same dangerous person who wants to do bad things to them. And the fact that they're hiding behind a monitor screen at the end of the internet somewhere doesn't change what that end goal is when the worst happens. So remind them never to give out their personal or private information. You shouldn't give your number to a stranger on the street, so why would you give it to them online? Same with giving out their names of their schools or where they live or any of that sort of thing. These are all common sense to most of us, but to a kid, it's just something that needs to be reinforced. So tackling the difficult conversations. Some conversations are obviously going to be more difficult than others, but it's important to have open and honest conversations so that you can help your child with any worries or issues that they might be facing online. And this goes across the gambit. It could be viewing online pornography, sharing nudes of themselves, if they've been upset by explicit content, and also things like being bullied. Bullying isn't just something that happens in the playground anymore. This is something that is inherent across a lot of social media. There's a lot of apps these days that also kind of encourage that sort of activity. So these are difficult conversations to have with your child, and it'll heighten their feelings of fear, anxiety, worry, shame, even embarrassment. As with any conversation, it's important to stay calm, stay balanced, and also try and be non-judgmental. You're not there to make them feel bad about what's happening. You're there to help them to understand what's going on online and how to be safe. If it's something that's made you feel angry or fearful, then I would say don't try and tackle it straight away with them. Take that time to go away yourself, calm down, and maybe speak to someone else who you trust before you try and have that conversation. Because if you're angry with them, they're immediately going to shut down. They're going to dig their heels in, and you've lost that battle straight away, and then there are no winners. Don't be too forceful with them. There's a risk that they'll close down, as mentioned, and consider a subtle approach instead of like a head-on approach. So, for example, you could ask if the subject is discussed at school, what they've learned about it, or it could be something that has been on TV or you've heard about on the radio. So just try and roll that conversation out in a natural way, rather than just bang on head on straight into it. Listen, this is the one thing that I was taught in when I went through my initial RAF police training was, you've got two of these and one of those for a reason, and that is, you've got to listen to what people are saying to you. So if you're in police interviews, for example, and this is why I was such a terrible interviewer. I really hate awkward silences, but we used to use awkward silences as a way of letting people talk, and almost they felt the need to start talking. So they would they would actually start to talk to you about things that maybe they wouldn't normally have. So just listen to them. Don't interrupt them. If there is a little bit of silence, they might be thinking about how to word something and get that across to you, and you could just cut straight across them, and that that's gone then. Providing context, so allow them to understand why some things are wrong. Age inappropriate or even illegal, in order for them to critically think and assess, they need that information. So if you give them that context to be able to see why you're saying this activity is bad, tell them why it is. Don't just say don't do it, because natural instinct of most kids is to if you tell them don't press that red button, they're going to go over and press that red button because they now want to see what happens. So tell them what happens if they press the red button. Trust them to make the right decisions. This one is something that I've remembered over the years growing up, because family values, it's okay to remind them of your family values. Some parents might think that something is okay for their children, but explain why you don't think it's appropriate for them. Just because others do it doesn't mean you should. If they jump off if they jump off a cliff, would you follow them? I used to always say yes for some reason, but sticking a hand in a fire, are you going to do the same thing? No, because you've been taught differently. So that's a good one to have a discussion with them about. And this last one, punishments. So, children will often talk about being punished if they're in trouble, if they've done something wrong. If you say you found out that they've been looking at explicit content, but they said it was by accident, they're fearful of you taking their devices off them and not letting them have contact with all of their friends for a week or whatever it is. And that is a punishment and the consequence for something that was basically out of their control, if you were to believe what they've said. If it's a pattern and this is the fourth time, then obviously then it's time to start thinking about other ways of discouraging them. But talk to them. If that's the first time that you've seen them do such a thing, then talk to them about it. But as with anything to do with things like that, there's a judgment call for you as a parent, but definitely something that needs to be carefully handled, I would say. So yeah, we're going to break down into the age groups now, and you will see, if you do stay with me through this whole section, it shouldn't take too long, but you'll see that certain aspects of this will carry on across each of the age groups, because they are foundations to this. So for the very youngest of up to 5-year-olds, I would say a good place to start is to explore together. Talk to your child about what the internet is and explore it together. So you can show them. There's lots of fun educational resources and things to do on there. Reassure them that if they do see something upsetting, then they should come and talk to you about it. And that harks back to the punishment thing. If you've punished them for something, then they'll be more likely to hide that from you. But if you're exploring together and sort of talking about the good side of the internet, then they're more likely to come to you if something goes wrong. In the same way that in the real world, if we tell children, if a stranger comes up and talks to them or tries to get them to go away or keep a secret, that's something that should be a trigger in their mind to come and speak to you as a parent, or go and speak to a responsible adult of some sort. Be involved, encourage them to use their devices in the same room as you, because you do want to be able to keep an eye on them and how they're using the internet, especially at that age. So stay inquisitive about what they're doing and encourage them to share their enjoyment with you. And it comes back to if they're doing something, why are they doing it? Why do they enjoy it? Who are they doing it with? Just make it part of that almost daily conversation with them, so that it doesn't seem out of place when you do ask them. This one, next one is covered in a few of my other videos, and that's about parental controls. Not just what I've discussed before about Norton and Custodio and things like that, but you have control over a lot of different aspects in your home. You've got your home broadband. Most home broadband providers have parental controls as part of that. If you don't know, Google it. If you're still not confident, what to do, reach out. I'll be more than happy to put something together to explain those features. I would rather you ask the question than be afraid to ask the question and then just not bother putting it in place, because there are some very good defenses out there in just standard broadband. Microsoft Windows, Apple, iOS, Android devices, they all offer ways to control apps, as you've seen in some of my other videos, hopefully. And also what sites and sort of content your child can have access to, especially at this age group. I would say definitely use those things. Have a look across my channel. You'll see the stuff I've done on Norton and also the Custodio, and I would say Norton is probably still my number one recommendation. I will go back and have a look at that though to see what might have changed, and maybe update the video that I've already got. Searching safely. If you let your child search independently on their own, at that age maybe not, but just make sure that safe search settings are on, and activated on Google. You can do that across any of these search engines these days. It's very easy. It's a drop down. Just put it in place, and it'll help prevent a lot of those dodgy websites from coming back. Or you can set the default to a search engine that's specifically designed for kids, and that's called Swiggle. I'll probably look at doing some content on that in the near future. Using passwords, so on your devices, your own personal ones, not the ones that the children are using, put passwords on those, especially on any internet enabled devices, and definitely don't share those with your kid. I know it can be easy to just chuck your phone at a kid who you want to keep quiet and let them go on with things, but if you give them the password, they're going to be able to get on there anytime they want and do whatever they like. So it sort of goes against the whole principle there of communicating with them and not letting them try to start hiding stuff. You can also use those passwords to make sure that they're not making purchases and playing games or using apps, and that, because the last thing you want is to be the next headline that says their kid spent £1,500 on buying in-game gold for a game, or you've got 1,700 toilet rolls turn up on your front doorstep. So yeah, try and use passwords and keep them that way. Using age appropriate sites and apps, there's loads of stuff that I've done, but basically if there's an adult app out there, then there's probably a kids equivalent. There's YouTube Kids, there's Sky Kids, BBC iPlayer Kids, Nickelodeon Junior. There's so many different age appropriate apps on most of the stores, and there's a reason why they have age ratings. So try and keep within those age ratings, because like I said, they are there for a reason. Setting boundaries. It's never too early to start setting boundaries with children when it comes to technology, and about how to use internet connected technology. That sort of includes which apps and sites they can use and how long they can spend on them. Put those rules in place, and hopefully they'll abide by them. So next we have the 6 to 10-year-olds. So agree boundaries. So going on again straight from the previous one is a good one. Be clear with your child what they can and can't do online, where they can use the internet, i.e. which room. So I know quite a few people who, end of the day, when they send their kids to bed, their phones get left downstairs and they don't have access to them. I think that's an excellent way of doing things, and it means that they know that that's the end of their access, and they can't be up to all sorts out of sight. And then agree with your child, and it's a conversation again, but agree with them when they can have it, how long they can use it for, and be in a routine on that side of things, which makes it then normal. Exploring together, as I said in the previous one, the best way to find out what your child is doing online is to ask them about it. Ask them to tell you what they're up to, show you things, show you the things they like to visit and do. And if you don't understand something, ask them to explain it. And if they're happy to, ask them to show you those different apps, and talk to them about being a good friend online as well. It harks back to because this is the age groups upwards that start to have to worry about bullying and the like. So it's a good time to bring out those family values again. Using airplane mode on devices when your child's using them, it's a good way of without having passwords and stuff in place. If you don't want to use them, it helps to stop them from being able to do anything other than playing the games that you want them to be able to play. And it also stops you from ending up with, like I said, 1,700 toilet rolls on your front doorstep, or a £1,500 bill for some in-game gold that no one actually needs. Stay involved. Encourage them to use their devices in that communal area, in your front room or your kitchen, so that you can keep an eye on them, how they're using the internet, and in sharing their enjoyment. Genuinely be interested, rather than that forceful adult in the background who's trying to stop them having fun, which is how some people could see that. Talking to siblings, it's a good idea to talk to any of the older children about what they're doing online, and what they're showing to any younger children, so that they understand about age appropriateness, and it encourages them to be responsible, and also to help their younger siblings stay safe online. Because, as I've mentioned in plenty of other videos, kids are scarily switched on to a lot of the stuff that's on there, and they may know so much more about some of the dangers that are out there that they can tell you about, and they can tell their younger brothers and sisters about. So do make it a family conversation, and get others in the family involved in that. Search safely, as I mentioned in the previous age group, is one to make sure you have those safe search settings set on in your browsers, whether that be Google, Bing, any of the other ones, or consider having one that is appropriate to kids, such as the Swiggle. And remember, YouTube and the like have kids variants of that, because YouTube does have a lot of content on there that maybe isn't going to be suitable for all kids. And that the other point here is that I realise I've probably gone wrong way around on what I've got on the screen, but checking if it's suitable. So the age ratings that come with games and apps and films and social networks, they're a good guide to you to know whether they're suitable for your child. Lots of people don't know that the minimum age limit is actually 13 for majority of social media sites like Facebook and Instagram. But there are other ones out there that are actually aimed at under 10s. Spotlight, used to be known as Kudos, have social networking elements that are designed for kids and more age appropriate. And the next slide is the 11 to 13 year olds, and this is where we're getting into those terrible teens that I mentioned at the start about the mood swings and them thinking that you're just out to ruin their fun, and it's also at that point they probably start to say that they hate you a lot because you've infringed on their ability to have a good bit of crack. So these are sort of where the conversations can be more frank. And I would say it's now that you need to start encouraging your child to talk to you about how they use the internet, and show you what they do, and discuss with them the kinds of things that they might come across. So it's a good time to talk about it is when they get a new device, or if they mention a new website or something to you, a new app. Just have the chat. Because they should already be aware of why you're interested in these things. They should be aware of the dangers of what's out there, and hopefully in a frame of mind now where they are going to be more open to your discussions with them. Managing their devices, this comes back to the other two age groups, encouraging them to use their tech devices in communal areas, and also set up a user account for your child on that device. If you think that they're old enough to have a mobile phone or tablet, stay firm and explain the reasons why you've put that in place, or why there's Norton on there. But as I said, if you've started this conversation early enough, then hopefully they're in the right frame of mind to understand already why you're doing that. Putting yourself in control is the parental controls on your home broadband. All devices these days, and even games consoles, have parental controls or abilities to put them in place on there. Safe search settings on Google, YouTube, iTunes and iPlayer, they all have the ability for you to be able to do that. Just check through some of my other videos, or if it's not covered, if there's an app not covered or a site not covered, let me know. I'll do something about that. Staying safe on the move is one now to consider, because you are probably letting your kid take their devices, go out with their friends, go to school, what have you, and you need to help them to stay safe on the move. So if your child's accessing the internet using public Wi-Fi, they may not and probably won't have any safety features active on that public Wi-Fi. Some providers are part of a family-friendly Wi-Fi schemes, which actually does put filters and blocks inappropriate content, and you can actually look out for that. Places that are part of that, and they'll have friendly Wi-Fi symbols. Mumsnet family friendly as one, RDI friendly Wi-Fi. Just keep an eye out for these sort of signs when you're out and about with your kids. It's a good time at this sort of age group to maybe consider having agreements in place, a family agreement. There's lots of places you can download like templates and stuff around this, but it basically is a chance for you to sit down with them and run through boundaries for their internet use, including when they can use them, where they can use them, for how long, and do it now before they get used to doing their own thing and not having any boundaries. Starting discussions about social networking. You can never do this too early, but talk to the children about the benefits and risks of social media and social networking before they join any sites. Let them know that anything they upload, any email or message, could stay around online forever. And that's something I've covered quite a bit in other videos, is once you click that submit button, you don't own that anymore. It's on the internet, and it's there for a pretty substantial time. There are ways to get content removed, but once it's on the internet and everyone has access to it, anyone can share it, you're onto a losing game when it comes to that. And the last thing that a kid wants, 10 years down the line, when they're trying to get a job, or a job they've been dreaming about for years and years, is for most HR departments, whether they admit it or not, one of the first things they'll do is go and look at someone's online presence, see if they've posted something or that was inappropriate, whether that be racial or racist or sexual or something like that. It's not something you're thinking about at 11 to 13, but if you've had that discussion with them, then they know. Keeping private information private. So your child, if they do have a social networking profile, have a look at some of my other videos about Facebook and Instagram and how to secure those and tighten down those restrictions. But teach them to block or ignore people, and also how to set those strict privacy settings that I've gone through before. Request that you or someone you both trust becomes their friend or follower to check that conversations and posts are appropriate. But also remember, as I've mentioned in a few other videos, that some kids these days will have spam profiles as well. So they may tell you about one and you may be a friend on one of their profiles, but they could have 2 or 3 others that you don't know about. So it's another good reason to have all of these conversations early, so that there's less risk of them trying to do that sort of thing. And check in age ratings. As I've mentioned before, there's a reason why age ratings are in place. So have a good look at those and see whether they are appropriate for your child at that age. This age group, officially shouldn't actually have access to Facebook or Instagram. Obviously, we all know that plenty of them do, but that's a call for you as a parent, and not something for me to get involved in. And then we have the 14+ where to start with them. You want to stay involved, as I've mentioned it before, is keep talking, keep in or stay interested in what they're doing, and don't be afraid to bring up some of the more challenging issues with them, such as things like sexting, things like pornography, cyberbullying. Of course, it's going to be embarrassing, in the same way that having the chat with your kid has always been seen as embarrassing, but at the end of the day, it's an important conversation to have with them for many reasons, and that's no different with this subject and talking of online stuff, it's better that you have that embarrassing discussion with them, because you'll both benefit from it, and the subject's there and out in the open then, and something that can be willingly discussed going forward. Keeping their information private, setting their privacy settings on most social media sites is easy to do, so that they can only share with close friends. So that they can only share with close friends, and it's more control over what they share and what they've posted. But the same rules count. If someone who has access to that decides to take that and share it online elsewhere, they have no control over that. Staying safe on the move, same as the 11 to 13 year olds. Use safe settings on all the mobile devices, but be aware that if the child's accessing the internet via public Wi-Fi, there might not be the filters to block inappropriate content, or they may not be active on there. Some outlets like McDonald's, they're part of that family-friendly Wi-Fi scheme, and as mentioned before, the Mumsnet family-friendly Wi-Fi and the RDI-friendly Wi-Fi symbols are something to keep an eye out for when you're out and about. Also, I should mention that public Wi-Fis aren't the safest and most secure, because there could be someone sat in the corner of a room with a laptop who is sniffing that web traffic and would have access to any sort of financial data or personal data that you're accessing at the same time. Be responsible, as an adult, as a parent, as a teacher, as whatever you are, as an older sibling. Be responsible. Talk to your teenager about being responsible when they're online. Children, they often feel that they can say things online that they might not say face to face, but you want to teach them to always have respect for themselves and for others online, and that comes back to that family values conversation and the sort of stuff that you would already expect them to be doing, but there's nothing wrong with reinforcing that during this conversation about being online. Online reputation is a good one to speak to, and this would be the same for the 11 to 13 year olds, to be fair, I did touch on it before, is that, again, anything they upload, anything they email or message can stay around online forever. They should only do things online that they know you wouldn't have an issue with, or a teacher or a future employer would be able to look at and think that that's okay. So get them to think about creating a positive digital footprint, so that 10 years from now it doesn't come back and bite them in the bum. Trust is a big thing at this age group, because if you can afford to give them those small allowances if you can afford to give them a small allowance that they can use for spending online, so back to the old days of pocket money, they can then download apps, music, films for themselves from places that you've agreed together, maybe as part of that agreement, that family agreement that you've done with them. And the last point here is don't give in, and don't give up. Remind them how important it is to not give in to peer pressure. Don't send inappropriate comments or images, and that's probably one of the most important points, is because I've seen quite a few bad instances where just sending those images to someone can end in a really bad place, and I'm not talking about not getting a job or not being able to get a job because your employer's gone and looked for these things, but I'm talking about people who use that sort of leverage to start blackmailing a child, or make them start to do things that you really wouldn't want them to do. And worst case scenario is it has ended in suicides before. So this is the sort of age group where you really, there's nothing wrong with showing them those sort of examples and letting them know that this isn't just a game. It's not just something, you know, that them and their friends can do, and it's all a laugh, because ultimately it's the sort of thing that you can do. It takes 2 seconds to press a button to send something, but it can impact you, you know, in many different ways, and for many years afterwards. So I think that's the last point on that. We're going to move on to the summary, and just covering off, communication's key. I've said it in most of my other videos. Talk to them, start the conversations early, talk to them about it, and start it early and be consistent. Don't start to give in on certain things. If you do that, then, you know, what is it? You give an inch, they'll take a mile. Stay interested in their online life. Don't be afraid of it. Don't, because you don't understand it. If you don't understand something, get them to talk to you about it. Get them to explain it. Try and stay current with safety and security on apps and sites that they use. If I don't already have some content on it, reach out to me. More than happy to have a look at that and put a quick guide together or whatever. And ensure that they remain comfortable coming to you and talking to you. If they don't, they're going to hide it. And if they try and hide it, it's very easy to hide these things these days. If they try and hide it from you, then, you know, that battle's lost, and you've lost that ability to try and help keep them safe. And yeah, just don't give up. Just keep being interested. The mere fact that you're here looking for, you know, these sort of tips, or searching some of the other videos on my site, shows that you are interested in their safety. You are interested in them, you know, being safe. So yeah, keep fighting the good fight. And yeah, just thanks for watching. If you've any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. Also, there's my email if you want to drop me a line, and I can chat to you in email. I don't have social media anymore, as I've explained in one of my other videos. Not great for my mental health, so I decided to stop using social media. But I would ask you to try and share this channel, share this video on your social media with other parents or people that you think would benefit from it, and also subscribe to the channel so that you get access to any future content and advice that I put together. But thanks for watching, and catch you all again soon.